and whatnot. So I want to go ahead and get this show on the road. First, before we get into the Alex Jones and Owen thing, I want to talk about this Iran situation because it is getting pretty crazy. I think that we all could say pretty confidently that no one expected the situation between Israel and Iran to be permanently resolved just because Trump announced that there's a ceasefire after a failed attempt to permanently destroy the nuclear facilities. And let's be frank also, we just know how Israel operates. Israel they've bombed in the last week. And I've said this on my show. I've literally just said this on my show and during the hotspot video. Since I've actually started paying attention, which is like 7-8 years, like specifically to the military operations of Israel outside of Gaza and the West Bank, you begin to realize that there is literally not a day that goes by if you actually look hard enough where Israel isn't bombing another nation. This is just a material fact. They are bombing. They just bombed this week, y'all, or at least within the past 7 days. They bombed Beirut. They bombed Syria. They assassinated multiple cabinet members of the Yemeni administration, right? Like people that aren't even military targets. This is like the norm for them. So if anyone actually believed that this situation between Iran and Israel was going to somehow dissipate simply because Trump made some announcement after some attacks that weren't all that effective, at least not the way that he was claiming to be, you're out of your minds, y'all. Israel, these people are psychotic. And at the end of the day, who was running the show there? Netanyahu. And what have I always said? Netanyahu's goal is to protect himself. In the main way to protect himself from being held accountable from these hearings that are supposed to happen that keep getting put off because he keeps starting wars and starting conflicts. The main way to keep himself protected is to continue to start conflicts. Because while Israel is actively engaged in a wide-scale conflict, they can withhold elections. They don't have to hold them. And he can just keep dodging, no matter how many protests they have. So let's check out this article really quick, discussing the potential part 2, part 3, whatever you want to call it, between Israel and Iran. The ceasefire between Israel and Iran declared at the end of June has not ceased tensions between the two nations. On the contrary, military preparations continue beneath the surface. It ain't even beneath the surface anymore. And the entire region sits atop a powder keg that could explode at any moment. In both Jerusalem and Tehran, officials speak of a new phase in the confrontation, one of fragile mutual deterrence with its timeline influenced by regional and international developments. While Israel strengthens its defense systems and accelerates production of its aero missiles, Iran is building its forces. It makes it clear that it will not abandon its nuclear program, even at the cost of another military clash. Which is crazy because I don't know why they have to make that clear. No one else is being asked to abandon their military program. The question allegedly at hand was whether or not Iran was building nuclear weapons, and that was a clear and decisive no. They weren't. Even the U.S. admitted that, and then the script got flipped to justify Israel's aggression. But at the end of the day, they still never provided proof of a nuclear weapons program. Senior Israeli defense officials report that Iran is in advanced talks to procure air defense systems and fighter jets from China in preparation for the next round with Israel. According to an interview with Dr. Morandi and Sabi Sabs, he's saying that they've already procured a lot of weapons from China. Actually, that hypersonic missile technology that they use against Israel, that Israel never saw coming, that was from China. They were shipping, I did a hotspot piece on that. They were shipping pieces so that it would go undetected, and they built that hypersonic missile right under the West nose. So if whatever y'all think Iran's capabilities are, Dr. Morandi actually said, I'm trying to get him on a show for an interview about this, but Dr. Morandi and other people have said that whatever you think the capabilities of Iran are, it's better. They're just not revealing all their capabilities at the moment because by being too transparent with the West and Israel have gotten too bold. So they're just not gonna say anything. Whenever the time comes, they just made it clear that the next time we hit y'all, we hit y'all hard. So They add that Iran is planning a preemptive surprise. Really? Iran is planning a preemptive surprise strike on Israel as retaliation for the Israeli surprise attack carried out on June 13th. Yes, because we all know Iran is known for their surprise attacks. They're completely and totally unprovoked surprise attacks. It's Iran known for that. The IDF Chief of Staff, Lieutenant General Eyal Zamir, stated on July 20th that the latest confrontation with Iran was merely a one phase in a prolonged campaign. Interesting, because that's not the lie they told us in the beginning. We were told it was about a nuclear weapons program that didn't exist. Look at it. The lies, this all Israel lies. The Israel lies. Can't even call them Israelites. It's just the Israel lies. That's all they do, bro. They can't maintain the same lie for more than a week. I swear to God. According to him, we are now entering a new chapter based on the achievements of the operation. What achievements? We disrupted Iran's nuclear and missile programs. We must remain vigilant. Yeah. Defense Minister Israel Katz echoed Zamir's remarks, warning on July 22nd. There's a high likelihood of renewed fighting. So, in short, it's about to get popping again. And it's Israel's fault. And they will keep somehow deflecting to this idea that it's actually Iran's fault. And Iran is doing nothing but preparing for the inevitable assault from Israel based on what? A nuclear weapons program that doesn't exist. They said that now they're like, oh, now we're attacking because we were successful. If you successfully deterred Iran from achieving a nuclear weapon, if you successfully dismantled their nuclear weapons program, why do you need to attack again? Your lie isn't even making sense anymore. Now, the other day, I did a video actually discussing the conversation between, it was Germany, England, and France and Iran. They want Iran to reach some type of diplomatic terms regarding their nuclear program. No one knows what the hell that's supposed to look like. No one. I'm being serious about this. If you actually go and read the articles, you're like, Europe right now, those countries, along with other countries in Europe, are threatening to reimpose sanctions against Iran under the JCPOA that the United States violated when it pulled out of the JCPOA in 2018 for no reason at all. And they want to reimpose these sanctions because they say Iran has not come to the table and given us a reasonable conclusion. They haven't talked to us about what their plans are or exactly what they plan on doing. We haven't reached a diplomatic. What solution do you want? We haven't made nuclear weapons was the deal. That was the solution. We let your inspectors in. You've had more inspectors enter Iran to confirm that we weren't making nuclear weapons than any other country in the world. Oh, and simultaneously, while you're on top of our heads about a nuclear weapons program that doesn't exist, you refuse to investigate the nuclear weapons program of the nuclear weapons that are in Israel. Israel refused to join the JCPOA. Now, the biggest takeaway from that meeting, or lack thereof, there was a meeting, but it didn't lead to anything, is that if those snapback sanctions, as they call them, end up going into effect, you know what Iran said? Yeah, you can go ahead and kiss that NPT, the non-proliferation treaty, goodbye. We're out. Understand the JCPOA and the nuclear non-proliferation treaty, these are not the same things. The JCPOA puts limitations on enrichment principally. That is what it is mostly about. It's about inspections, enrichment, kind of like a administrative thing. It's for people who might have nuclear weapons, mostly, but it's for people who don't have them yet. The NPT, however, is specifically about nuclear weapons. It is saying you will not make nuclear weapons if you don't have them. Even if you do have nuclear weapons, you will not make more of them. If you are a country without nuclear weapons, you will not seek to do trade with countries who have nuclear weapons so that you can attain nuclear weapons. It is about getting nukes. And Iran, effectively, despite being the country that literally came out and was like, yeah, we couldn't do that, But we, by virtue of our religion, there is a moral consciousness for them when it comes to nuclear weapons because there is a fallout. There is inevitability of civilian casualties. There's inevitability of damage to the environment. And they've made that clear, like, we don't want nuclear weapons. We could, we just don't want them. But for them to come out and signal, we are done. We're going to pull out the NPT. That is not the JCPOA, ladies and gentlemen. That is basically them saying, we're going to make them because y'all not giving us a choice. And personally, I support it. I don't want them to have to use nuclear weapons. I don't want that. I don't want them to risk the fallout because you know, if Iran uses nukes, Israel is, we don't even know what Israel's arsenal is because no one's allowed to investigate it, literally. But we don't know how Israel will react because Netanyahu is a psychopath. I believe that if Iran uses nukes, Israel could launch a warhead at them, and Iran probably has the ability to deter it. However, Lebanon does not. Syria won't because they have a terrorist dictator in charge who just lives at the whims of Netanyahu at this point. It's like the fallout with the other countries. So I don't want them to have to use it. However, the likelihood of them having to use it is actually greatly decreased if they have one, because everybody knows that Israel acts like a bully in the region because the one country that could go toe to toe with them, just like on a one, like just 1v1, we gonna go bust your ass. It's Iran. The problem is that every time Iran engages with Israel, despite the fact that they could technically win just off of the strength of the weapons that they have, as long as Israel has the trump card of the nuclear weapon, which they have already bragged about, they talked about potentially using nuclear weapons against Gazans. So we know they have them. But every time you get into that situation, you are technically bringing a knife to a gunfight, because no matter how much you attack them, they can let one ring off. One. And we're in a different situation now. And Israel knows that they can continue to use it as their advantage. That is one of the advantages they've had while engaging in the region. There are 4 countries, y'all, that are not part of the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty. There are 4. That's the other reason we can logically conclude that Iran is saying whenever they threaten to leave the NPT that they're planning on making nuclear weapons. There are 4 countries. Israel, is it Israel, North Korea, South Sudan, Pakistan? 3 of those countries have a nuclear weapon or in the process of making one. South Sudan is its own thing entirely. But do you get my point? Like when Iran, who has announced that they're going to increase the nuclear enrichment up to 93%, who has made it clear that we're about to hit Israel back harder than ever before, has made it clear they're tired of Israel shit and they're tired of Europe shit. Like when they say they're pulling out the NPT, it could only be for one reason, because the JCPOA is no longer applicable. So making it clear that now we're going to pull out the NPT, that is letting you know what their intentions are. And the world has no idea how quickly they could arm nuclearly. Because I'm sure they're not stupid. Just because we didn't make one don't mean we don't know how to. Don't mean we don't have the technology. Doesn't mean we haven't planned for it. And all this could be resolved if someone would just hold Israel accountable. Anybody. But nobody wants to. And then when Iran ultimately has to do what they have to do, who's going to be blamed? Iran. Which is insanity. It really is. So what's going to happen next? I don't know. Is the U.S. going to come to Israel's aid again? Yeah, Netanyahu's going to try. He's going to want that, definitely. Will it make a difference? I don't know, because Trump claimed that the ceasefire that happened in June He claimed that they stopped attacking Iran because they had achieved their military objective. But Iran was like, even despite the fact that they could have come out and they were in a vulnerable position somewhat. They were in somewhat of a vulnerable position because they did just get attacked. But Iran was like, yeah, but y'all ain't really do shit. Like, we're going to be up and functional in like a couple of months again. Trump was like, yeah, we completely destroyed it. We obliterated it. And they're like, no, you didn't, bro. What are you talking about? So, like I've said before, and I've said it before, I'll say it again. I'm going to have to say it a million more times. The U.S. does not want smoke with Iran. They don't want it. They will take pop shots at Iran. They will threaten Iran with words. They will do military exercises around Iran. They will talk when Trump will beat his chest alongside Netanyahu over what they will do to Iran if Iran does not comply. But at the end of the day, I will be damned if you see Trump put boots on the ground in Iran while we're out here trying to manage all these other conflicts around the world that we really can't handle. Because if we could have done so, we would have done so. If we could win a war against Iran, we would have already done so. We would have already tried. We wouldn't have won. But if we thought we could win, think about that. We know how dumb the US is when it comes to military strategy in these forever wars. Because it's like a mixture of the corruption of trying to carry out the war for as long as possible so that the military industrial complex continue to profit off of the wars. But then there are like the actual idiots who are planning these wars who have no idea what a successful mission being carried out would even look like if you ask them. So it's like you're getting hit by dumbassity by both sides. We couldn't win a quote unquote war, which wasn't even really declared a war, in Afghanistan. We just out here killing innocent people because we don't know how to fight actual military. We couldn't win a war in Iraq because nobody even knew what that mission objective outside of let's get rid of Saddam Hussein and try to set up roots there. But then Iran went in there and actually got rid of the terrorists, and Iraq was like, yeah, we think we like them better. But we had to stay there almost indefinitely. Whenever the West African nations and of Mali, Burkina Faso, Niger, whenever they were like, yeah, we're done. We're about to overthrow these governments. Y'all not gonna do shit about it. Where are they at? Where's the US? They did a lot of this alongside France and ECOWAS and even parts of even NATO. They all were doing a lot of this, right? A lot of talking about what they were going to do if they didn't reinstall their colonialist puppet overlords. Yeah, nothing happened. Okay, look at Ukraine. If Biden believed that putting American boots on the ground was feasible and that we would win and that he would look good if we did so, he would do it. We didn't do it. But we thought we could win in Afghanistan. We got our asses whooped. We thought we could win in Iraq. We got our asses whooped. We look back at Vietnam, for example, same thing. We didn't actually win the war in Korea, which is a whole different conversation. So how many times are we going to have to go through the same situation before people realize if we don't attack a country, we attack countries we think we can win and we still lose. So when we have already made the decision, the United States, that we're not going to attack a country because we know we'll lose. Oh, like I said, the most you're going to get from us are pop shots and empty threats and military exercises. Because we don't have enough soldiers. We don't have enough intel. And we don't have enough help. We can't beat Iran. Israel can't even hold Iran without the US's help. We couldn't beat the Houthis in the Red Sea. So what do the Israelis do? They attack their cabinet members because God forbid you actually attack legitimate military targets because you can't win. The US tried it. Didn't work. You can't beat the Houthis in the Red Sea on a single military front. But y'all gonna go, okay, good luck. Don't call me. Don't call me. Y'all might not, if the US tries to announce a fight against Iran, y'all might see a record number of people just say, nah, I'm out, fuck it. Fuck my benefits, fuck all that. Because there's no winning, there's no victory.